Hey guys, we're going to talk about the unit circle. Okay, the first thing you're going to ask me is, do I have to memorize the unit circle? No, you do not. I will provide you one on a test or quiz if you need one. So don't stress about that, please. If we have a unit circle, okay, we've talked about radians, and it says, they told us in the last lesson that from the central angle here in the middle to the outside of all of our special angles that are on our right triangle, on our unit circle, they're all based on either 30, 60, 90 or 45, 45, 90. This value is 1. It's 1 radian. That's where they get the radians from. So when they, excuse me, when they give you this formula is x squared plus y squared equals 1. You guys already know that. This is similar to the Pythagorean theorem. If you look here, when they talk about x and y, when we're talking about the right triangles and when we're talking about the unit circle, your x value is the distance from the origin out to a certain point on the x-axis. Your y value is from the y-axis up to a certain point, whatever. And then where they connect would be your 1. So all that's saying is the relationship between those two, if you square them both, they'll equal to 1 radian. That has to do with the unit circle. Other than that, you guys don't need to know anything else. If you have more questions about that later on, you'd like me to clarify at any point, just let me know. But that's all you really need to know from there. What we're getting into today, excuse me, I ate something really spicy in my salad. But we're talking about trig functions. You guys are super familiar with sine, cosine, and tangent. We're big kids now, so please don't say sin, cos, and tan. It's sine, cosine, and tangent. And then we have something called reciprocal functions. So the reciprocal to sine would be cosecant. So these two go together. The reciprocal to cosine would be secant. And the reciprocal to tangent would be cotangent. That's usually the one that you guys remember the most because it's the easiest. I know on your web assign tonight, one of the questions talks about the abbreviations. So there's your answer. Don't email me and be like, what are they talking about? Those are the abbreviations that you guys use. They're on your calculator, that sort of thing. But this slide is the most important of what we're going to do today. And I'm going to go through 4 examples with you using this information. And then you guys are going to be good. I'm going to set you free. But your trig functions, and this is in relation to points that are on the unit circle, not stuff that's not on the unit circle. I'm going to give you a value of an angle, and you're going to be able to go, okay, this is the ordered pair, this is the ordered pair, this is the ordered pair. You need to understand the relationships here. So sine of whatever angle I give you is going to be the y value of your ordered pair. The cosecant would be 1 over, the reciprocal. We would just flip it. Cosine is the x value of the ordered pair. Secant is 1 over that. You just flip it. And then tangent is usually the easiest for us to remember. Tangent is the y value over the x value. Cotangent is x over y. So what you're going to do, I gave you these little steps here. You're going to find the radian or the degree measurement that corresponds with the question that they give you. You're going to use this chart. I'm going to tell you to write it 100 times every time you do it to kind of get it in your brain to figure out the answer. And then it says always rationalize the denominator, right? If we come out with an answer that happens to be like 2 over the square root of 3, what is the problem there? Can't have a square root in the denominator, so you'd have to rationalize. We would multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 3, and this would equal 2 root 3 over 3. This is how Mrs. Meadows wants it. Since WebAssign likes to be different, this is how WebAssign wants it. All right, WebAssign does not want you to rationalize. I have absolutely no idea why, but they don't want you to. So you can leave it with a radical in the denominator on your WebAssign answers. You cannot on a quiz or a test for me. And when I go through this, guys, I'm showing you exactly what I want to see when you take your test or quiz. All right, I don't want to see what Mathway or Photomath does. They're not going to do it the exact same way that I am. And I don't want just, oh, I did it in my head. Because it says on every test and quiz that you take, no work, no credit. Show all your work. So I need to see all of your work. So they got one slide to do, and that's it. All right, I suggest from now on, everything we do from now until the end of chapter 5, you get a unit circle that you like to look at. There's a bunch of them on the internet. This one just happens to be easier for me to read because it's different colors. You can differentiate a little better. You have to be very careful. This is not a hard concept, but it's really easy to make a mistake. In a case like this, if you forget a negative sign, it completely changes the angle that you're looking at, the answers that you're giving. Everything is wrong. If you accidentally write down the wrong ordered pair because you were trying to go too fast, everything will be wrong. So it's really, really important for you guys at the very beginning to double check. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down letter A. This is what I expect to see on WebAssign tonight. They're telling me that theta, or the angle to look at, is pi over 6. So I'm going to go over to my unit circle. What is the ordered pair that you guys see at pi over 6? What's the ordered pair? Square root 3 over 2, comma, 1/2. So you're going to write down square root of 3 over 2, comma, 1/2. That's you showing me, oh, okay, I know what angle I'm looking at. I always put an x above the x value and a y above the y, just to keep my mind straight. Now, if you're going to evaluate all 6 trig functions, all right, first one we do is sine. So the sine of theta, the sine of the angle that I'm looking at. Go back to your chart. Sine is what value, the x or the y? So I would write sine theta, remind myself that's y. What is the y value of this ordered pair? That's your answer. That's theta. Now, what's the reciprocal function to sine? What goes with sine? Cosecant. So over here, I'm going to say cosecant of theta. Well, what is the cosecant of theta? What do I remember from my chart? It's 1 over y, correct? So in a sense, you're just flipping 1 over 2. So what does it become? 2, or 2 over 1. That's it. Anybody have any questions so far? All right, so then let's do cosine. Cosine theta. Remind yourself, because we're just starting this, what is the cosine value that I should look at? The x or the y? X. So my x value here is what? Square root of 3 or radical 3 over 2. Good. What's the reciprocal function of cosine? Secant, S-E-C. What's that ratio that I remember? It's 1 over x, right? It's the reciprocal. When we have a reciprocal, what do? You flip it. So instead of root 3 over 2, this is really 2 over root 3. Now, in WebAssign, leave it just like that. For Mrs. Meadows, what do we need to do? We got to multiply square root of 3 on the bottom and the top. So this becomes 2 root 3 over 3. Questions so far? This is what I expect to see on WebAssign. This is what I expect to see on a test or a quiz. So now let's go through tangent. Tangent's the one that's the quote-unquote hardest. It's not really that hard. But tangent of theta. What's the ratio that I remember for tangent of theta? X over y or y over x? Y over x. What is your y value? 1/2 divided by, what's your x value? Root 3 over 2. Guys, this is super easy to make a mistake. So just take your time. Be like, okay, did I do y over x? Did I put the right thing over the right thing? And now, now we can fix it. I have 1/2 times, keep, change, flip, right? So this becomes 2 over root 3. My 2's will cancel out, so I'm left with 1 over root 3. At this point, WebAssign, go ahead and put it in like that. On a test or a quiz for me, what do we need to do? Rationalize. We're going to multiply top and bottom by square root of 3, and I get the square root of 3 over 3. Questions? We okay? We did keep, change, flip. For dividing fractions, you keep, change, and then flip that one over. So you keep the first fraction as 1/2, change the division sign to multiply, and then you take the square root of 3 over 2, and you flip it. It becomes 2 over root 3. Question? Anybody else? Home? No? All right, so let's do cotangent. Cotangent of theta is what over what? What over what? X over y. Good. So my x value, my ordered pair, is root 3 over 2. My y value is 1/2. So let's clean it up a little bit. Square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. What happens to the 2's? 2 on top, 2 on the bottom cancels. I'm left with the square root of 3. And so that would be your answer to a question on WebAssign, on a test or a quiz, when it says evaluate all 6 trig functions at pi over 6. Questions? Time till 12:40. Okay. Everybody okay? Can someone at home please acknowledge my existence?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, thank you. Just make sure you all are there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to C. I want to do C and D to make sure I get them in, and then I'll finish up B. If we run out of time, I'll finish up on the video before I upload. But you'll have questions like C on your WebAssign and probably on a test or a quiz. So the question says, what's my theta? What's the angle that they want me to look at on the unit circle? Pi, okay? So I'm looking at pi. What is the ordered pair, ladies and gents, at pi? -1, 0. This is a really easy question, and it's a really easy question to make mistakes on. So let's go through this slowly. I have the sine of theta. Remind yourself, remind me, what is sine, x or y? Okay, sine is y. So what is the y value? It's just what? 0. Good. Now when I talk about cosecant of theta, what is cosecant? 1 over y, correct? Guys, don't just put 0. Actually write down 1 over the y value. What does that give you? Undefined. Yes. This is undefined. That's not 0. You'll have a question like that on WebAssign where you have to write in undefined. Show me that you understand, oh man, 0's on the bottom. I can't have that. That's why it's undefined. Easy for you guys to just go, oh, it's 0. It's not. Remember, 0 on top is 0. 0 on the bottom is not. So now I have the cosine of theta. Well, remind me again, what's cosine? X value. So what's cosine of theta? -1. Good. So I have the secant of theta. It's 1 over x, right? So it's 1 over -1, which gives you -1. Good. All right, lastly, we have tangent of theta is y over x. What's your y value? 0 over your x value is -1. So what's my answer here? Yep, why am I writing that? It is 0. So now for cotangent of theta, it's x over y. What's my x value? -1. What's my y value? 0. So my answer here is undefined. Questions, ladies and gents? Those are our quadrant angles. Yes, sir? Yeah. I tell you, Alec, the question was, do you have to memorize the 6 functions? If you do, I know it seems annoying to write down sine, y, cosine. Tonight, when you do your homework, for all of them, if you write sine is y, cosine is, it'll just stick in your brain. Promise. All right, let's do D together. I want to talk about D. What does D say? What's the angle that they gave us for D? Negative pi over 3. Now, guys, this does not mean you just put a negative sign in front of all your answers. What did I tell you a negative sign in front of an angle measure means? When I start on my initial side, what does a negative sign mean? We go downwards, right? It's direction. If it's positive, you go up. If it's negative, you go down. So the way that you figure out the ordered pair that you're talking about when it's a negative angle given, I'm looking for a negative pi over 3. So let's find positive pi over 3 on our unit circle. So from the initial side, I go up 1, 2, 3 dots. Everybody see that? At home, everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so if I want to go to negative pi over 3, I start at the initial side, and which way do you think I go? 3 dots. Downwards, I go 1, 2, 3. So this is the ordered pair that they want me to look at. Pi over 3 is the same thing as 5 pi over 3. That's just the direction. So if they told you they wanted you to go 2 pi over 3, you would count from the initial side. You went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces to 2 pi over 3. So if you wanted negative, you'd start at the initial side and go down 5 spaces. What you do is you find the positive value on the unit circle first, see how many spaces you went from the initial side up. To find the negative one, you start at the initial side and you go down that many spaces. So the ordered pair that we're looking at for negative pi over 3 is 1/2. Whoops. And what was the other one? Negative. Was it negative 3? Root 3 over 2? Okay. This is where, guys, when you get out of the first quadrant, when you start having negative signs and then double negative signs and stuff, this is where you guys have to be really careful with your signs, because if you miss a sign, there's a huge difference between positive root 2 over 2 and negative root 2 over 2. It's a completely different part of the unit circle, so I cannot give you partial credit if you just miss a negative sign. So that's important. So remind yourself, my x value is 1/2, my y value is negative root 3 over 2. So I say the sine of theta. Remind me again what sine is? It's y. What's the sine of negative pi over 3? Negative root 3 over 2. Good. So now I'm going to do the reciprocal, which would be cosecant of theta. It's 1 over y, which would be what? Just flip it. Negative 2 over root 3. Can I leave it like that for WebAssign? Yes. Can I leave it like that on a test or a quiz? Nope. So rationalize top and bottom by root 3. I get negative 2 root 3 over 3. Questions? Talk to me.
Could you put that like the final answer for WebAssign?
I believe it'll mark it wrong, but I'm not 100% sure. Not 100% sure. I know that the answer key, and every year that we do this, we've emailed and said, hey, can you give the rationalized version as well? That has not happened yet. So just giving you a heads up, because it can be confusing, because if WebAssign takes it and then we don't on a test or a quiz, I get why you guys are a little like, oh, that's why I'm saying it 100 times. All right, if we do the cosine, what's the cosine of negative pi over 3? What's the x value? 1/2. So what's the secant, guys, of negative pi over 3? 2, or 2 over 1. Mathematically, the hardest thing you're going to have to do is divide fractions. This is a lot of thinking. We're going to get into some stuff in chapter 5 that you don't use any numbers at all. Super fun. All right, tangent of theta, y over x. What's my y value? Negative root 3 over 2 divided by my x is 1/2. So I have negative 3 over 2, negative root 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. What happens to my 2's? I cancel, so I have negative root 3. My cotangent of theta is going to be x over y. So my x value is 1/2 over my y value is negative root 3 over 2. So to simplify, I have 1/2 times negative 2 over root 3. Doesn't matter where that negative sign is. If you want to keep it with the root 3, that's fine. But your 2's will cancel out. So you're left with negative 1 or negative 1 over root 3. You can leave it like that for WebAssign. But for your test or quiz, got to rationalize. And you'll get negative root 3. How do we feel? That? Oh yeah, I forgot the 3, I'm sorry. Last one, and then we're done. What's the 5 pi over 4? Okay, so I'm looking for 5 pi over 4. Go to your unit circle. Where's 5 pi over 4? What is it? Bottom left. Tell me what the ordered pair is.
Negative root 2 over 2.
Uh-huh, and? Okay. Negative root 2 over 2 and negative root 2 over 2. Okay, this one, guys, can be tricky, so you got to pay attention to what you're doing. We're going to say sine of theta. Sine is y. What is the y value of this ordered pair? Negative root 2 over 2. All right, so now if I'm going to move over here and do the cosecant, it's 1 over y, so we just flip. So this becomes 2 over negative root 2. Again, Webassign, you can leave it. Can we leave it? No, so rationalize. You get negative 2 root 2 over 2. Is that completely simplified? No, the 2's will cancel out, so that leaves you with negative square root of 2.
Miss Meadows?
Yep.
Are we going to have stuff where it's like you have to rationalize something with like a cube root in the bottom?
No, it's always going to be that's a good question. The only things that we're talking about, y'all, are what's on the unit circle. So it's either 1/2 square root of 2 over 2 or square root of 3 over 2, or 1s and 0s around the quadrants. But other than that, that's it. Just got to pay attention to signs and stuff like that. Signs as in positive, negative, not as in sine, cosine, tangent. All right, so cosine of theta is x. What's the x value? Oh, look, it's the same thing, negative root 2 over 2. So when I go to do the secant, what's going to happen? It's going to be the same thing as before. So it's 2 over negative root 2. We're going to rationalize. We'll get negative 2 root 2 over 2. We're going to cancel and get negative square root of 2. Can anybody tell me what the tangent is? Why is it 1? Because you're dividing by itself. Look, tangent of theta is y over x. What's the y value? Negative root 2 over 2. Divided by the x value. Negative root 2 over 2. So if we simplify this, guys, negative square root of 2 over 2 times, when I flip this, becomes negative 2 over square root of 2. What happens to my whole number 2's? They cancel out. What happens to my radical 2's? They cancel out. What happens to my negative signs? They cancel out. When everything cancels out, what is left? 1. Don't tell me 0. Be real careful about that, guys, when you have a ordered pair that has 1 positive root 2 over 2 and 1 negative 1, because the negative signs don't cancel out. But your cotangent is going to be the same thing, because it's x over y. Well, my x value is negative square root of 2 over 2. My y value is negative square root of 2 over 2. So when we keep change flip, everything cancels out, and I have positive 1.